I am thrilled to welcome Susanna Isaacs from the Office of Innovation, National Archives and Records Administration, as well as Ching-Sen Wang, Collection Systems and Digital Asset Division, Smithsonian Institution. Our speakers today will share their experiences with transcription and crowdsourcing. And this is a really nice tie-in to our 2012 OCLC Research Report, Social Metadata for Libraries, Archives, and Museums. And I'm really glad to have this presentation as a follow-on to that report and also a mark of continued innovative work in this area. As I said, we'll pause between presentations to take your questions, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end for you to ask more questions as well. Suzanne will be kicking things off, so take it away, Suzanne.
Hi there. I'm Susanna Isaacs, and along with my colleague Meredith Doviak, I'm a community manager for the National Archives Catalog. So our job is to manage, build, and grow the community of users surrounding the National Archives Catalog. We're the first line to help customers engage with the catalog. We work to create an environment that encourages communication and participation with the records. We get records and information out to users, but we also take information in to develop a feedback loop of awareness and engagement that expands the audience for our holdings. So our ultimate goal is to enable limitless access to our nation's history, to create a vibrant community that contributes significantly to the quality of our online records, while we're also evaluating the understanding of history and its importance to society and democracy. So how do we do this? We do this in lots of different ways. I'm going to talk about our Citizen Archivist dashboard and how we crowdsource transcription and tagging of historical records in our catalog, and how we also create a space for dialogue in collaboration, and that's researcher to researcher and researcher to archivist within the History Hub. So why are we transcribing and tagging? Crowdsourcing ties directly to two of the four strategic goals of the National Archives. So it's in our mission to open up these records through things like tagging and transcribing. So this is the landing page of our dashboard, and our crowdsourcing is found starting on this page. Unlike other transcription programs that you may have heard about around the country, ours lives within our catalog. So our catalog came first, and we had millions of descriptions and digital objects in there. And then after piloting the use of tags and transcription, it's now fully integrated into our catalog, along with the ability to add comments to descriptions. The great part about doing it this way, putting it into our catalog rather than building a standalone transcription tool, is that we already had millions of digital objects scanned and ready to go. But the downside of it, and some of you will have to evaluate these if you're building a new program, is that we already had scans in our digital objects in our catalog, and they were done when, frankly, it seemed like digitization was a limited commodity, so that not all the pages were scanned of a record, or that they were scanned at a lower DPI because our back end at that point years ago could not handle large files. But that's all changed now, and we're working to replace those old images. The lesser quality images now only represent a small percentage of our digital objects, and we're replacing them as we can and as we encounter them. So the goal of our dashboard is to add metadata to each and every catalog description, and we do this primarily through the tagging and transcription. So as we add tags or transcriptions, all of those words are added to our catalog, and it makes our searches even better. They're more robust. And the other added benefit is that we're unlocking sometimes very difficult text, and it's easier for all to understand. So in a sense, we're unlocking history, and that's what I love about this. So our quality control is crowdsourced, and we use a Wikipedia kind of model. One person can transcribe an item, and another person can come behind and make edits and change it. Sometimes it's only work done by one person. We can't control that. The transcriptions are not marked as complete, they're not approved, and they're not locked down when they're finished. They can always be changed. So this is our landing page for our catalog. just wanted you to get an idea of what it looks like. We have a selection of rotating images that are pulled from the catalog that are a background. So every time you go in here, you'll get a different picture. And what I love is often it's a really zoomed in image because it makes it really big, and I think it makes it look like a piece of art. At the bottom right is always a link to that particular record in the catalog. I want to give you some of our numbers. As of Monday, we have 14,351,541 digital objects in our catalog. So that's different pages of a record, that's audio, video, and electronic records as well. We've added 7 million digital objects this year alone, and we plan to add about 3 million more before the end of September and the end of the fiscal year. So these are some snapshots of diving into the transcription section of our dashboard. So crowdsourcing has allowed us to reach so many more volunteers in a virtual environment than we can do in our physical buildings. For example, just in our DC area, we have locations across the country, but just in our DC area, we have about 200 volunteers who dedicated 26,000 hours last year. But as online volunteers from remote locations, and I like to imagine they're probably in their pajamas, we have about 14,500 registered users. All of them have various degrees of being active in our catalog, but we reach them and they're registered. Each week we have an increase of about 3% or about 500 transcriptions a day into our catalog. For the National Archives, crowdsourcing happens in 2 different ways. There, you can go into our catalog, and if you're logged in, you can tag and transcribe right there in the catalog. And people stumble upon records they like, they will put in keyword tags, or they will transcribe something that's interesting to them. We also have tagging and transcription missions, and this is an example on the left of our transcription mission homepage. We put about 6 missions up, and we rotate those about every 2 weeks, depending on how fast they are transcribed by people. We try to do them topical subjects that people might be interested in. The missions are their groups of records by a subject. We also have something you'll see at the bottom right. It's called Don't Leave Us Hanging. This mission is really important to us. We tag records with a tag that pulls it all into this mission when we find records that aren't fully transcribed. And this lets people know they can help us out and finish up the work. It works really well. It's very effective. So we also have something called feature records. The featured records are individual records, one-offs kind of things. There might not be enough of that certain topic to create a mission based around it. And we change that list often. Sometimes it features a record that staff would like to see transcribed right away, and other times it's just an interesting record that might entice someone to transcribe. Sometimes it's easier just to pick one off of a list than to dive into a particular mission. We coordinate with our social media outlets, with blogs, Twitter, Facebook, to advertise our missions or topics. We tie in often. And today's document on Tumblr will feature a record and add a link encouraging readers to help transcribe it. So we keep driving back to the catalog to crowdsourcing as much as possible. We also do things like special projects. The federal government has Sunshine Week, which promotes openness and transparency in the government. This year we focused a mission. Each day we unlocked a mission highlighting records from an American historical era. So each time it was a different time period in American history. In that week, we had 1,300 pages transcribed, and about 345 individual items were completed. The bonus part of this is that the records in this Sunshine Week, these Sunshine Week missions, was that they were handpicked by members of our education staff. These records are found in NARA's educational tool, docsteach.org. So now the transcripts that are in the catalog are being fed into DocsTeach, and they're going to be available for educators and students for online lessons. So currently we have about 129,297 transcriptions in our catalog. And we have an increase of about, as I mentioned, about 3% each week. So our tagging missions are very much like our transcription missions. Tagging is a bit easier than transcription. There's less time commitment, and it's much less intimidating. It's great for younger kids, too, high school students and the like. Tagging allows people to make our catalog more robust and searchable. So we feel like the best tags for photographs and graphic materials are when people identify objects or concepts that are not included in the title or the scope and content note of the description. So it really helps unlock that image or that record for other people. We have about 175,000 tags in our catalog. We have an increase of about 2,500 tags a week. So let's look at what it looks like. Here is we're going to jump right into the catalog, right into a record, and here's a record view. So the tags for the entire record are placed over on the left-hand side. Those tags represent the whole record itself, the whole letter. And the blue tags on those thumbnails indicate that there's some sort of crowdsourced contribution on each of those pages. Here is a zoomed-in view where you can look at the user contribution section. The first tab is for tags. These tags can relate directly to the page above it. You can be very specific about saying that page 3 is where Henry Lee might be mentioned. You can be very specific about that. The next tab is for comments. We've just started comments. We don't have very many. It's just launched in the last few months, and we only have a few hundred comments, but it's exciting to see how people have begun to use it. We see it as a place for our users to discuss a record, add additional information that may not fit in the tag or the transcribe field. Here's what it looks like in the transcribe view. We have a very simple text box, no formatting. You just type what you see, and you hit save. And it will show you here that we have more than one contributor to this transcript. Also, we can zoom in, and we can drag that record around to be able to get a better view when we're transcribing. My wish list is that we have the ability to rotate an image 360 degrees so that we can rotate it around, because often you'll find that things are written sideways. It'd be much easier if we could rotate it around to read it better. So that's on my wish list for our next version. I'm going to zoom into into tags a little bit here. I've made the tags bigger so you can see in this photograph what users have contributed. The tags enhance a record. They add keywords that are not part of the title. And you'll see in a minute when we look at the rest of the description how much more has been added to this. You'll also see a weird code. It says, that tag says SN-TG1. That's a code that I put in and as a community manager, and that gathered this record along with others with that code into a mission. And also tags can be very personal. We have teachers that often use them to gather records together to show their students. We have people who give presentations and pull records together and have a tag and then you have a URL as well that can be shared with other people. If you're ever going to do this with our records, I suggest making a code-like tag up so that when you search for it, it'll only bring up your records that you have with that tag and not anything that's similar or suggest other things that are similar. Here's a zoomed-in version of the bottom of the bottom part of our description, and I've placed a box with those tags in there. You can see in the scope and content note that some of these tags that are listed are not in there. The word lumber, I believe, is not in there. And so now a person who is searching for lumber would find this record, which I think is a fabulous thing. So we communicate, and we communicate a lot. The new thing we've had in the last few months is our National Archives catalog newsletter. We have about 14,500 registered users that get this about twice a month. And we highlight something about the catalog. We talk about crowdsourcing, about citizen archivist projects, new records that have been added to the catalog. This one talked about tagging. So check it out. There's a URL there for this particular catalog, and then you can also sign up there as well. So other places that we communicate with our users in the History Hub. NARA has developed a support community to ask questions, talk to others. It's much like Apple's support pages. So you can start to type a question, and if it's been answered already, it'll pop up. You've all experienced this kind of help page before, I'm sure. If your answer isn't there, you can ask a question. So the goal of the History Hub is not to be NARA-centric, but to have a place for history discussion, referrals, help. Discussions take place researcher to researcher. They're also researcher to archivist. And if you continue to explore the History Hub, you will see that there are several different topical areas that you can ask your question in. And as community managers, my colleague Meredith and I engage in the History Hub. We answer questions and we share opportunities for new missions, crowdsourcing missions, and we see what historical topics people are interested in, and it helps us shape ideas for new missions that we're going to create on the Citizen Archivist dashboard. So that is all I have for today. I'm happy to answer some questions, or after we're done with both presentations, I'm also happy to answer some questions.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. That was really useful. We'll be sure that we include the links that you included in the email that we distribute afterwards so that people can get to those more easily. So we have just a couple of questions for you at the moment. We'll see if people type some more in the moment. Let's see. I'm going to so the first question is, are the changes tracked? So I think that was asked at the point where you were talking about the transcriptions, and that you work in kind of a Wikipedia-like way where things aren't controlled. But can people go back through and see the changes that have been made in the transcription as it's built out?
You can't. We, on our back end, have an opportunity to see the last changes. You can see that somebody else did change it, and you can see when it was changed. We do monitor these kind of things, and we have had nobody coming to us complaining about a change that's been made, and people are able to do that. So we haven't had that, which has been great, and it just kind of shows the helpfulness of a community. So no, you can't. You yourself cannot see the changes that have been made.
Okay, great. There's a couple of other questions. I think I'm going to ask just one of these right now,
sure.
And maybe you can go back into chat in a little bit and answer more of them, and we can have some discussion at the end too. So there's a question, any plans to run some sort of authority control for names so you will get complete results, cross-references, or suggestions for additional searches?
We're not going to do an authority control. These are publicly added. We're not changing, we're not deleting, we're not telling people what they should put in as tags. This is in addition to the authorities that we already have in the catalog, that sometimes people will even put a name in there that's been in there already, that's already in the description. So no, we're not doing this. Again, this is all publicly contributed. This is what the users put in. This is not the archival record. This is in a supplement to it. Right.
But because it does go into the catalog, if those name forms are available, they're already there.
They're already there, yes.
They're added through this process.
Right.
Yes. Okay, great. I think we're going to just go ahead and move on to Ching-Sen's presentation. So, Ching-Sen, you've got the ball. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. The Smithsonian Transcription Center is a platform that allows us to upload the Smithsonian images online, and we invite the public to help us to transcribe the content. So today the plan is I will cover an overview of the Transcription Center project and brief description of the system functionalities and user interface and some of the system statistics, and then how we use the collected data. So let's get started. This project was launched 3 years ago, June 2013, with just a few archives at the Smithsonian. This project has now grown into a successful cross-institution collaboration. I am the project manager, and I'm so fortunate to work with a team of talented technical staff and a project coordinator, Megan Ferreter. Now, 15 Smithsonian organizations are part of this project. There are 9 archives, 5 museum departments, and the Smithsonian libraries. These organizations are responsible to provide the materials online for Transcription Center. So the Transcription Center was never reviewed as a standalone system or project at the Smithsonian. Our vision was to build a companion system as part of our larger digitization effort and a network of discovery systems. It is also an important tool for us to do public engagement. On our transcription website, under the About page, we explain why Transcription Center matters to us. And you will know, as you all know, many of the digitized materials are viewable but not easily searchable. Many handwritten materials are difficult to read and understand. Finally, many of our collections are not online at all. These facts limit our ability to support education, research, and discovery. So the Transcription Center is designed to address some of the limitations and to improve our readability and better support the discovery and education. In the 3 years' time, we've uploaded 199,000 digital documents, and 187,000 pages are already completed. We have more than 6,000 participants working with us. The document types that we include are diaries, field books, endangered language materials, manuscripts, or even museum collection objects. The Transcription Center is a template-driven and is flexible to support very different transcribing needs. It supports structured and open text formats. The open text formats are suitable for diaries, manuscripts, letters. And this example is a diary volume from Charles Francis Hall from the Archive Center at National Museum of American History. The handwritten pages are very difficult to read, but the stories and the gruesome living conditions that's recorded was very valuable for the researchers today. The structured template supports special data types. This project is from the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. This is a set of 75 logbooks containing information about 500,000 photographed glass plates. The metadata are transcribed in spreadsheets format following the logbook layout. One more example where a template contains multiple tabs where there are too many fields to transcribe. The numismatic proof sheets were completely hidden as a collection before the transcription project. These objects were digitized without any catalog records first. The images were uploaded into the Transcription Center. The structured data is collected from 3 separate tabs for simplified process. The authority control are built in on many of the fields. The Transcription Center supports not only the data entry input, but also the data output for files for desired formats, for future database or catalog records that can be built for better searching. The Smithsonian's review process is focused on quality control. So this is how we do it. Everyone in the Transcription Center can transcribe a page at any time. After a page is finished, the system will select a person to review a page. No one can review his own work. The reviewers do not know who has transcribed the page that's being reviewed, but the reviewer must log in with a personal account in order to do review. After a page has been completed for review, it is considered completed but not approved. The Smithsonian staff have an option to go through the final approval process. This type of process is necessary for quality control but provides flexibility at the same time. The Smithsonian has a long tradition of working with the volunteers on larger projects. Started in 1846, the Smithsonian's new secretary, Baer, started a meteorological observation program. The volunteers from across the country sent in observations on the weather conditions of their region. The secretary cultivated these relationships by writing up to 5,000 letters per year. Today, the Transcription Project is pleased to work with our online volunteers. We have a dedicated project coordinator, Megan Ferreter, to communicate with our volunteers via email, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. The communication addresses direct question and answer, provide technical guidance on how to solve a problem, and running organized campaign to tackle difficult projects. Megan has also hosted Google Hangout sessions to reward volunteers by giving behind-the-scenes tours that are related to the relevant transcription projects. In 3 years' time, our volunteers have pushed the project forward very fast, and we try hard to keep up with them by uploading more and more documents online. Among our volunteers, on average, there are about 140 volunteers per week working on the site. 51% of our users are returned users. Our super volunteers spend on average of 28 pages per visit. This is a chart that shows a wide range of volunteers and their contribution activities over the 3 years time span. The vertical axis shows the number of contribution activity counts. The activity levels is as high as 77,352 contribution actions per person. This is very high. The horizontal axle are the 6,000 plus individual volunteers. Anyone who has done at least one transcription or review action is loosely considered as an active volunteer. As far as contribution level goes, we have broken down the volunteers into super, top, mid-range, moderate, and one-off users. The super users are our top 1% of the total active users, but their contribution is 59% of all activities. We have 2 super users who have contributed more than 77,300 activities each, and we have come to know them personally. The rest of the super users range from 4,000 to 2,100 activities each. The anonymous volunteers did not log in when they transcribed, but they took 55,480 actions totally. Even though we don't know who they are, they have contributed 5.5% of the activities. Similarly, from the Google Analytics report, it shows that many sessions lasted shorter than 10 seconds. But this chart also shows that 102,000 sessions lasted at least 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or more per session. In the red highlighted section, you will see the huge number of page viewed by this dedicated group. These are the sessions that have done the bulk of the work on the system. We can't thank them enough. As promised, we wanted to increase our ability to discover and access hidden contents. We have made sure that the public can download our transcribed files. We indexed all contents in the central Enterprise Digital Asset Network for use by all the Smithsonian software applications and public search engines. Finally, we took transcribed data and created structured catalog records. For every project that has been completed, the Transcription Center offered a download button on display so the users can take the PDF files for their own use. In 1.5 years, the total download file is near 341,000 times. From this chart, you can see that the demand for these files sharply increased in the past 12 months. This is the Smithsonian Central Collection Search Center that is the discovery platform for the more than 9.5 million Smithsonian collections from our libraries, archives, and museums. In this example, we searched for belly feather, and we found multiple records. One of the records is a field book, which was transcribed in the Transcription Center. There are multiple pages in the field book containing the matching search term. The multiple pages are displayed as individual thumbnails as part of the catalog records. By clicking on one of the thumbnails, you will be taken to the Transcription Center to read more details. We created lots of catalog records. Those records help us to uncover our hidden collections. This is one example that has lots of details in data fields from Natural History Museum Botany Department. You will notice that the records includes a note that says, transcribed by digital volunteer. We credit our volunteers for the work that they have done for us. The final takeaway from this presentation will be the following. If you're considering doing a project similar to this, consider Transcription Center as an extension of the existing digitization effort. Allocate dedicated resources to manage and interact with volunteers. Allocate dedicated staff to maintain available materials in the system because they will be gone in no time. Create a plan for fully utilizing the transcribed data, and to improve the discovery and access to the hidden collection. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. I was looking to find my mute button there. Let's see. So we have questions. Some of them are for both of you, and some of them are specifically for one or the other. So let's get to it. One of the questions, I think this is applicable for both of you, wanting to know, are there guidelines for transcribers? So how to deal with things like typos, misspellings, abbreviations, illegible characters. What kind of support do you give for transcribers who are looking to deal with those tricky situations?
Okay, I will take this one first. We have lots of guidance for the transcribers. We have overall recommendations on a help page. that tells people the general conventions on how to deal with situations with lots of animated pictures so that people can see what we're talking about. And for individual projects, as you notice that we have very many different templates that is very custom to type of materials. And they all have very specific instructions. And those instructions are on every page next to the data entry page. We also, in some cases, for every field, we have an inline instruction to tell people what the format it should be. When they mouse over the field, a very specific instruction could pop up. There are other situations where we actually also accommodate an external link so that people can look up on handwritings to match for certain specific names. So, basically we have all sorts of instructions every step of the way.
Great. Suzanne, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so I have to say, this is evolving here for us. In the way we have our crowdsourcing, that we don't edit, that we don't review and approve, we have started with a very loose and casual way of telling people how they should do it. We gave them very simple instructions: type what you see in a way that makes sense for that record, because this is not a printed transcript. It's just a kind of a text box. We have found that we need to give more information, that people are asking more questions. So we're actually in the process of adding some more details and also doing examples and screenshots and things like that. So what we've learned is you have to be flexible, and what you think you want to do in the beginning may not be what you end up with in the end.
Right. You have your kind of help center. Do people give one another guidance in the help center? Or are those the kinds of questions that people are asking of one another?
They do. There's a lot of questions also about handwriting that was just mentioned, and we've had some great kind of tutorials coming from our archivists on deciphering handwriting. Okay,
great. I have a question that's specifically for Xingsen. How does the Smithsonian system pick a person to assign a page for review? And could a registered viewer select a completed page to review on their own?
The system randomly assigns viewers for review. So we do not have human involvement in terms of selecting a reviewer for certain projects. The system randomly choose. A reviewer can come in, and if the person feels like just doing review for this session, there is a button that puts them into a review track. So every time when they hit next, it's going to be that next sequential page that needs review.
Okay.
And we find a lot of people actually during this process do a lot of reading, and then they make connections on the story, and then would realize they will leave each other's notes and say, watch out, this person's S looks like a Q. You know, that sort of thing. So during the review process, they discover a lot of things. Now, they have a lot of flexibilities what they do when they find a mistake. Either they can go ahead and fix the problem and complete the project, or they say, well, I find that somebody can fix this, and they could just go ahead and return it back to transcription mode so another user would take another pass. So on average, each page can take an average of 3 to 4 passes before it actually go to the complete stage.
Okay, great. Here's another question that's for both of you, and maybe Suzanne, you could take this one first. So beyond promoting the projects through social media or Google Hangouts, are there official programs for groups of volunteers, opportunities for in-person visits from classes to the institutions to work with the original documents? So talk about incentives.
Yeah, well, actually, the So our program has been evolving, the crowdsourcing, the community archivist has been evolving, and while I've been an archivist here for many years, I'm new to this position. We just created community manager positions that started about a month ago. So we're still ramping up what we're doing, but the only way you're going to be able to work with the original documents in a volunteer or some sort of promotional thing is if you are actually a volunteer. Otherwise, you'll be looking at digital images and using those. We're looking for new opportunities for people to interact with us and come visit us and experience different things. We do work with the GLAM community and Wikipedia. We do edit-a-thons and hangouts and all sorts of things with Wikipedia, but we're going to be expanding that as well. So keep looking. More things are coming. I'm not able to talk about them yet.
Okay, great. We'll check back with you and see what you're doing in a year. Sounds good. Ching-Sen, what are you guys doing?
Can you repeat the question again?
Oh, sure. It's beyond promoting the project through social media or Google Hangouts, are there official programs for groups of volunteers? And I think this is getting at, do you invite people in to come visit and celebrate their achievements in person, or is it mostly done virtually? I think that's more or less the gist of this.
We actually have done both. As I mentioned, we do host Google Hangouts. We send invitations out, especially when there is, say, that a project that's really hard to crack, and we know who have been involved in working on it, and we ask folks to help us out. This is a project that needs extra work or something like that, and then at the end we will say we'll host a Google Hangout for those who are directly involved first, and then we will provide behind-the-scene virtual tour, and have real chat opportunities with the curators, hearing more stories related to this difficult piece that got finished. Other times, there was one time we had an in-person event. We didn't have very many people showed up because the majority of our volunteers are virtually and physically far away, so it's not possible for them to take a flight to come here to join. So we find the virtual activities actually work out much more effectively.
Yes, I agree with that. That's the beauty of this, is that people can transcribe and help us from all over the world. And so it makes it harder to have events that we can actually have something meaningful happen with a good portion of our volunteers because they are all over the world.
Right, and also I'd like to add that those Google Hangout sessions, even though initially is limited to people who are involved with one particular project, we do record it and then open it up for everyone else to see, just like we're doing now.
Very cool. So here's a question. Again, this is for both of you. Ching-Sen, maybe you can take this first. Can the transcriptions be batch downloaded for any sort of big data analysis, and are they aggregated in large text corpora? So is there a way to get all the stuff that's been transcribed in one big lump to do something with?
We don't have something in place that would do that. Partially is because all of our data formats are different. You notice that we have different templates, right? So we have different export programs that are custom to the data format that we have, and these data do get, especially the data that is created for the sake of creating catalog records, we do have custom export that is for that. And all of the PDF documents are online available, but we don't have one that just sort of do a huge dump, and because they're really just the transcribed data.
Okay. Suzanne, what about you guys? Is there a way to get at all of that?
Right, and that's, again, that's the difference of what we do. Ours is in a text format. It's in our catalog, and through our API, you can download it. I am not an API person, but I'm told that through the magic of APIs, it can be downloaded.
Okay, great. Magic of APIs. Speaking of the magic, here's a question. Can you point us to software recommendations or programming expertise to build these kinds of tools at our own institutions? So Suzanne, yours is very much tied to the catalog. Can you talk about how much of a technical hurdle it was to get this all up and running?
It continues to be one. It's always evolving. We're always changing it. So in our current form, our catalog, we have a back end, which uses an Oracle database, and that's where our descriptions go in. And then the front end catalog online uses MySQL. They're custom designed. On top of those systems, we built custom software to provide the various functionalities and the other components of the system. So I like to say that we're content, not code, in our office. So we request things that we want, and then we have our technicians and the other in our and just the. I'm sorry, I lost my place there. But we have the code people who write it. So I couldn't tell you more than that. That's about the depth of my knowledge on the software that's used.
Right. NARA is a pretty big agency, so I imagine that you have a not small team that's available to work on this.
And we have contractors.
On other stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a team here in a totally different office, an IT staff, and then we have contractors that we contract out for other things too. Okay,
great. Xingfen, what about at your house?
Okay. The Transcription Center is one of the dots in the network of information discovery and digitization. So we built the system that we built. We use Drupal, which is an open application software, and but when we built the system, we did not want to duplicate any mechanism that's already in place. So, for example, when I say upload images into the Transcription Center, it's basically creating the pointers to the images that are already living somewhere in the Smithsonian. So we're not literally pushing the files of these images into the Transcription Center database. We're simply creating pointers to say, this one needs to be transcribed and go find it over there. For anyone who wants to build a standalone system, I think Drupal and MySQL are good free database and application technology to use. We find that these tools are something that we use, but we use in a slightly different way because we already have other system architecture in place, and we're just tapping into it. So we're writing a lightweight system.
Okay. We have a couple questions specifically on tagging. So Suzanne, these are for you. Can you talk a little bit more about the decision to add tags to your online catalog, and was there any internal pushback on that decision? So I think this is getting at intermingling user-supplied vocabulary with controlled vocabulary.
This is a hot topic at the National Archives right now. So what you should know is that the tags live only online in the view of the catalog. It's not in our database in the description itself. So it's not a permanent part of the record. We have been working and talking more and more with our internal customers, the other archivists and custodial units, about exactly what a tag is and what it's not. Sometimes there might be a tag that someone puts in that seems crazy and has nothing to do with the record that's there. But it might be actually that person's name they put their name in there so that they can search it again and find that record that they're very interested in. But it could cause confusion. It could cause people to think that that name is found in that record. It's even more difficult when that record is 500 pages long and to figure out where that person's name is in the record. So we're working to both educate our staff and educate the public that the tags are publicly contributed and that it doesn't necessarily mean that tag lives in that record itself, that it's correct, that this is what someone has added to this record.
Right. Right, so there's a variety of motivations for doing those tags, including people just being able to get back to the stuff they were working on.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's another question on tags, which may fit into your hot conversation at NARA. Have you considered assigning user tags to cluster vocabularies to enable retrieval on multiple synonyms or near synonyms?
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
But that's a good thing to, yeah, we're not there yet. This is just simple tags, retrieve those tags. If you search for that word or you search for a specific tag with that word in that tag field, it will bring it up.
Yep. Okay, we have, I've reached the final question, so if people have additional questions, I would encourage you to start typing those in now. I also have a question of my own that I'll throw in there. What factors do you use in selecting missions at NARA? And I think we could expand this to Smithsonian as well and talk a little bit about how you cluster things to motivate people. So Suzanne, how many missions are there total, and how often do you create new missions, and what motivates those missions?
There are 5 topical missions and one of that don't leave us hanging section, so 6 missions altogether. It's a variety of things that we come up with to create them. Sometimes it's around the time period, a historical event. We did a whole mission on Cuba when the president went to Cuba. We took a whole bunch of our records. They normally stay up for about 2 weeks. That's about how long it takes for, it's a varying number of records in there. I try to get about 100 pages per mission. And then sometimes if they're used and completed very quickly, I remove those from the mission and I add new records in. So sometimes you might find a mission staying there for a few weeks, and that's because it's really popular and people keep working on it. And as soon as I put new ones up, they're completed. So I add more. I typically don't go over about 100 descriptions in a mission because it just gets to be too much for a person to click through. We try to clean them up and remove the tag that creates that mission when it's completed. So hopefully you won't have to go through very many records before you find the next one that's available for transcription. And sometimes it's just fun stuff, you know. I find something new came into the catalog and it's fantastic, and I just want people to see it. And so we create a mission on that.
Great. Jingsen, what about you guys in terms of grouping things together for to kind of motivate people?
Sure. Actually, initially we were really concerned about how do we motivate people. It actually turned out to be the other way around, that the people just literally gobble up everything we put in, and we have to hurry up and put more up. And so that's why I said, you know, really it's the volunteer that's pushing this project forward, and we're just trying very hard to keep up with them. But we do have a process to select materials. The power of how to select these materials are in the hands of the individual units. They know their clients and they know the subject matters. So we don't really have a specific guideline. However, we do, you know, take clues from the units and work with them they say we need this and that, and this is a good topic, and so on. So the individual units make a decision on what kind of materials they choose to put into the Transcription Center as projects. Up until in this 3 years time frame, we have about 1,500 individual projects imported into the Transcription Center. Now, once they are in there, we sort of classify them in addition to, you know, it's this archive, it's that library, and so on. We also have a theme, and how we establish the theme is based on the Smithsonian's vision. So we have American experience, the biodiversity planet, the mystery of the universe, and the world culture are the Smithsonian brand challenges. And then in addition to that, we have added Civil War era, endangered languages, and fieldbook projects. So those are our themes, but usually the materials are not chosen based on the theme that's set up. It's the other way around, that the material comes in and then it gets classified under these themes.
Okay. Do either of you track if volunteers make connections between material held at your institution and material held at other institutions that volunteers may kind of make a connection? And if so, what do you do with that information? Maybe that doesn't happen.
This is Suzanne. Sometimes we might interact with a researcher that will talk about volunteering someplace else and having records someplace else, but it doesn't happen very often. So no, we don't have anything kind of in place with that.
Okay.
We actually do. We have some really, really fantastic volunteers. It's not just one or two people. And they do research as they transcribe. We were very much surprised. We thought that we were just asking for simple transcription, copy down what you see and type it in, and that was it. But they actually make connections from various collections that we put up. Then when we put them up there, we didn't know their connections. So Smithsonian's archives has a whole lot of field notebooks that are taken by scientists since the early days of the Smithsonian. And we also have various specimens from botany department, entomology department put online for these people to transcribe and create catalog records for us. And they make connections between how these notebooks documenting how these specimens were collected. They say, hey, look, you know, this notebook is talking about this project 203, all of these specimens that's being collected. They also make connections through the citizen science project that the Smithsonian is actively involved with many biodiversity-related universities and research organizations. They actually make connections between our materials and other people's projects from other areas in the country and the world. And some of them also participate in multiple programs. So they're not just volunteers for the Smithsonian, they're volunteers for other organizations as well, and they make connections between our collection and the ones that they have come across from other organizations. So it's very interesting.
Wow. So sounds great. You've got a bunch of really dedicated researchers out there working on your project. Well, we're out of time. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up today. Really want to thank our speakers for their participation and sharing their knowledge.